I don't know necessarily what changing Frank Vogel is going to do for this team when that is the circumstance. Dan, do you have any thoughts on that particular aspect of this equation and all the questions that are being asked about the Phoenix Suns right now?
Yeah, I mean, the segment is a vibe check. And I think the argument behind the offseason moves last summer was that the vibes had gotten rancid under Monty Williams, right? Like DeAndre Ayton was lost. They could not continue to bring back Chris Paul and expect him to be healthy. What had the positivity of that finals run had, long since frittered away and was gone. And so it was like, even if you didn't totally believe Frank Vogel was going to be like, I don't know, like an injection of adrenaline straight into the heart of Phoenix Suns basketball, or that Yusuf Nurkic was going to be a dramatic improvement over DeAndre Ayton or whatever. It was like, well, what we had wasn't working anymore. And we were already like halfway through changing that. So might as well rip the Band-Aid off the rest of the way and, get busy living or get busy dying. And I think you find yourself in a similar set of circumstances now where Frank Vogel, there is a reasonable argument to be made that like you brought him there basically to say, I don't know how the hell we're going to make a defense out of this team, but you know how to do that. And you have a championship on your resume. So like we can sell it and do something. And then they were like a slightly above average defense with that roster, which, you could argue like mission accomplished, job well done, Frank. But this is the NBA and it's a personality-based business and it's a relationships-based business, right? And if the judging by the fact that there were stories ready to hit publish on the second the buzzer and sounded for them that were like, Kevin Durant doesn't like his role in the offense. They stopped listening to Frank Vogel. They were laughing when he was trying to get tough with them. It's like, well, then whether Frank Vogel is right or not is almost immaterial. Like if the team's not listening to him and he no longer has the ear, then somebody else would need to come in to get it. I think the main question is like, who will have the ear of superstars? Like, I mean, if you are, while the stories about I had to stop myself from laughing at Frank Vogel raising his voice to us, those are anonymously sourced comments. I think but you have to raise the question of like, you have superstars on this roster, or you have two superstars and you have Bradley Beal who's being paid like a superstar, and you need a coach to come in and command their respect, right? Who's that? Who's going to do it? And who's going to command their respect to a level where like, if Kevin Durant doesn't like being spaced behind the 3-point line and shooting threes, like, well, your offense sucked when no one was shooting threes and somebody needs to, and Grayson Allen was hurt. So like sometimes you got to do the job, right? Who's going to get them to do that? Who's going to convince those guys that instead of playing the way they want to play, they might need to play a little bit of a different way to make it work? And not to demonize Kevin Durant in that conversation. I mean, like Kevin Durant played his ass off defensively this season. He was an all NBA caliber player. He was the most durable and accountable of all of those guys during the regular season. But I think assuming that a contender is just waiting there because you bring back the starting five of a team that won 49 games and then got absolutely drilled in round one, as it assumes facts not clear in evidence. And so I think Kevin Durant has not necessarily seemed particularly thrilled with any way that anybody has wanted him to play for a while.
James Jones said no one has maximized Kevin Durant, and the Phoenix Suns plan to be the first team to do it. So that's not reassuring. I don't know what is.
Yeah, of course. I guess we've sort of memory hold the point where he was playing off Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, because that was a pretty maximized Kevin Durant. But
I thought the same thing.
But anyway, all that to be said, like, you were giving minutes, to Drew Eubanks in the series. You were giving minutes to Eric Gordon in this series. You were giving minutes to, Thaddeus Young buyout signing didn't wind up making too much of an impact in this series. Like, Josh Okogie wound up getting off the bench in this series. Like, there's not a lot of there once you get past that starting five. Even if you believe that starting five is championship caliber, what happens after that matters a great deal. And I think the thing that what this series showed as much as anything was I think there was a way to look at the Suns, and I fell prey to this too. Like, I picked the Suns to win this series because I thought they matched up fantastically with Minnesota, and I'm thinking, like, in the context of a postseason series, they fit better what the postseason is because they're going to have multiple guys who can create shots. And the reality is, Minnesota fit a lot better for what the postseason is because Minnesota could play harder and more physically and absolutely shut your water off. And the Suns did not have another way to play. And so how do you find more guys that give you another way to play, ramp up that level of physicality? Like, a finesse team only kind of gets so far when they're not creating consistent shots. And so I don't know what the answer is to get that to that point. Coaching is a big part of that, but also, like, as you mentioned, limited avenues to get that second influx of talent behind those top guys. And so, like, I get Matt Ishbia saying we're not in a good position, we're in a great position. I think that feels like you're looking at things through a certain lens that I don't know that, and I understand why he thinks that because he owns the thing. I think that you're going to need to see some more reinforcements coming in, and I don't know how they get them.
The Suns can absolutely look at this and say the team that just destroyed us, they were kind of in a very similar boat. They made a huge trade, emptied the war chest. They were the laughing stock of the league. Oh, the Rudy Gobert trade was such a disaster. They go out in the first round very quietly. Of course, they were missing Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid, but Phoenix is missing Grayson Allen for the majority of the series. They come back. Bradley Beal, this is going to be his first full healthy offseason in like half a decade. People talk about Brad as like he's 35. He's still in his prime in theory, just around 30. Like, you swap out some, I mean, you look around the playoffs right now, the guys who are on minimums who are thriving are just absolutely huge swing pieces for their team. Like, we talked about Derek Jones at the top during the Dallas stuff. For the Mavs to find a legitimate two-way starter at the minimum who's now like creating off the dribble and attacking closeouts and figuring out how to be some type of like hybrid big in the dunker, but also a corner three-point shooter. Kelly Oubre being this bulldog who's making Jalen Brunson work harder than almost anyone has all season. Like, those are the types of signings. The Suns need one of those to work out, without a doubt. Then there's like a couple of people and a school of thought going around the league that, like, Phoenix, if the money thing isn't an issue, Phoenix probably will be best served massively overpaying Royce O'Neal, giving him some type of 2-year, $40 million team option or a 1-year deal like Bruce Brown got, because then you could trade him for 2 pieces back, which that's going to cost $60 million in tax penalties if you're paying roughly 60. I don't know the exact math in front of me, but that is the ballpark of what that extra flexibility will cost you. So I could understand why looking at the coach would be a quick fix, because James Jones and Matt Ishbia made it very clear during their press availability that the questions and the pleas for a point guard, they would just rather have the ball in one of those 3 guys' hands instead. And you could say that there would be benefit in getting someone to just make sure all these guys are getting an even diet of their shots and getting them in the spots that they want. But, like, how many players are going to be available at the equivalent of Nasir Little's $7-ish million? I mean, TJ McConnell has been a name that's been around that organization's, proverbial wish list for a while, but there aren't many players like that who are also like available for the taking. Yeah. So that's going to be a real challenge. I just don't, and to go back to the vibes of this all, the whole league saw Frank Vogel going absolutely ballistic on the sidelines and losing his composure. And it was not a good look. It was definitively not a good look. Like, I was surprised how that has been such a consistent piece of conversation in my phone calls this week.